That land belongs to this resort. Sheriff, do your job and remove him.
It's not that simple, Karen.
Not simply cut off the flow.
This water belongs to this land, Karen.
The court order says otherwise.
For generations, Jack Miller's farm had depended on one thing: water that his family had legally secured decades ago. Then a luxury HOA resort was built right beside his land. The resort looked like paradise, with enormous pools, green lawns, fountains, and hundreds of expensive rooms. But almost nobody knew how dependent that paradise was on Jack's water rights. Jack's family had maintained the old irrigation channel long before the resort existed. His water agreement was documented, recorded, and recognized by the local water authority. The HOA board decided that Jack's farm was becoming an obstacle to their expansion plans. They began discussing ways to change the situation without understanding the full history of the water system. Jack went through his family's records one more time. The documents confirmed exactly what he remembered. His water rights were older than the resort itself. Then the weather turned brutally hot. While Jack's corn struggled under the heat, the resort continued watering its lawns and pools. Karen wanted the Cornfield gone before the next major resort event. The HOA authorized a vegetation management project near the property boundary, believing they had everything under control. What was supposed to be a limited vegetation project went badly wrong when dry conditions pushed the flames toward Jack's property. By sunset, a large section of his cornfield had been destroyed. Jack walked through the field in silence the next morning. Years of work had been reduced to blackened rows, while the resort across the canal looked untouched. Karen arrived expecting Jack to simply accept the loss. Instead, Jack calmly asked her one question: who authorized the work? Jack contacted the local water authority and requested a formal review of the irrigation system. That was when the HOA learned the dispute was much bigger than a burned field. The original map showed something Karen had completely overlooked. The resort's main water delivery route passed through infrastructure connected to Jack's senior water allocation. Engineers traced the resort's irrigation network from the lawns back toward the valley. The connection surprised everyone in the room. The resort had spent millions building its luxury water infrastructure, but its operation depended on access connected to Jack's legally documented water allocation. The HOA board finally understood what they had done. They had picked a fight with the one property owner whose water agreement was critical to their resort operations. Jack never threatened anyone and never needed to. He simply followed the legal process and let the documents speak for themselves. The resort manager finally came to Jack directly. He admitted that the resort had a serious water problem and wanted to find a lawful solution. Jack agreed to discuss the situation, but only through documented agreements and proper authorities. The days of informal demands from the HOA were over. Investigators documented the damaged acreage and reviewed how the vegetation project had been approved. The facts began separating responsibility from assumption. The investigation found that the HOA's project management had failed to account for the unusually dry conditions. The board now had to deal with the consequences of its decision. The Water Authority confirmed Jack's established rights and the priority attached to his documented allocation. For the HOA, that confirmation changed everything. The resort was worth roughly $100 million, but its value meant little if its water system could not operate properly. The HOA suddenly realized how much leverage the documents gave Jack. Karen finally stopped demanding and started negotiating. For the first time, she treated Jack like the neighboring landowner he had always been. A new agreement was created with clear responsibilities, monitoring requirements and protections for Jack's farm. The resort would pay fairly for any permitted use instead of assuming access. With the dispute finally moving toward resolution, Jack turned his attention back to farming. New rows were planted where the burned corn had once stood. The farm survived, and the resort survived too. The difference was that now both sides understood exactly where their responsibilities began and ended. Jack never wanted the resort destroyed. He only wanted his land, his water rights, and the respect his family had earned over generations. The HOA learned the hard way that money does not erase history, property rights, or documented agreements. And Jack learned that sometimes the strongest response is simply knowing what you legally own. If you enjoyed this HOA story, subscribe and tell me where you're watching from.